Have you ever noticed how sometimes you act in ways that don't make sense to you? Maybe you lash out at someone without really meaning to, or suddenly lose motivation when everything else seems fine. There's often an invisible force at play behind these moments, steering your energy and behavior without your permission. Carl Jung called this hidden force the shadow self. Jung famously said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The shadow isn't some dark villain lurking outside of us. It's the parts of ourselves that we don't want to see. Our fears, insecurities, impulses, and emotions we push down or deny. It lives in the unseen corners of our psyche, quietly shaping who we are and how we act. This matters because the shadow influences your energy in subtle but powerful ways. When left unrecognized, it can drain you or cause behavior that feels out of your control. For example, you might find yourself procrastinating, feeling restless, or reacting sharply for reasons you don't fully understand. These are often signs that your shadow is at work, trying to express itself, but in ways that don't always make sense to your conscious mind. Jung also warned, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. This means that the more you avoid facing these hidden parts, the stronger and more disruptive they become. Your shadow quietly siphons your energy, leaving you feeling less yourself. The key is learning to recognize when your shadow is in control of your energy. It's not always obvious, but when you become aware of these moments, you can begin to take back your power and choose how to respond. But what exactly does this shadow look like? And how can you tell when it's running the show? That's what we'll uncover in the next chapter. How the shadow shows up in your daily life, often without you even realizing it. Have you ever felt like you're stuck in a loop, repeating the same mistakes, reacting too strongly to small triggers, or constantly undermining your own progress? This isn't just bad luck or poor willpower. It's often a sign that your inner shadow is in control of your energy. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." When your shadow dominates, it hijacks your emotional responses and behavior patterns, pushing you into familiar but unhealthy ways of being. These are the typical signs: intense emotional reactions that feel out of proportion, self-sabotage that blocks your success, and recurring negative patterns that keep pulling you back. Take emotional reactivity. Instead of responding thoughtfully, you might find yourself suddenly angry, anxious, or withdrawn. These reactions often stem from shadow aspects, unacknowledged wounds or rejected parts of yourself trying to be seen. When these emotions take over, your energy gets caught up in turmoil rather than flowing toward constructive action. Self-sabotage is another powerful sign. You may have goals or desires, but somehow you create obstacles, missing deadlines, making poor choices, or avoiding opportunities. This is the shadow's way of protecting itself, holding you back from growth because the unknown can feel threatening. These patterns severely limit personal growth and fulfillment. The energy that could be used to build, create, or heal gets trapped in defending against this hidden part of you. Jung pointed out, the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. The moral effort here is about facing uncomfortable truths within yourself rather than pushing them away. In everyday life, the shadow shows up in many subtle ways. You might get into arguments over small issues that remind you of past hurts, procrastinate on important tasks out of fear, or feel exhausted for no clear reason. Sometimes, it's the little voice inside that criticizes you harshly, or the urge to avoid intimacy because vulnerability feels unsafe. But what happens when you start to recognize these signs? How do you begin to reclaim your energy from the shadow's control? And more importantly, what can that reclaimed energy create in your life? There comes a moment in the inner journey when the invisible chains begin to loosen. You start to notice a shift, not dramatic but profound. It's as if a fog has lifted, and you can finally see yourself with a clarity that was once impossible. This is the moment your inner shadow begins to lose its grip on your energy and your life. Carl Jung observed, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The process of facing your shadow isn't about banishing darkness but transforming your relationship with it. When the shadow's hold weakens, several key changes emerge, changes that signal a deepening of self-awareness and freedom. First is increased emotional awareness and stability. Instead of being tossed around by sudden waves of anger, fear, or despair, you begin to recognize these emotions as signals rather than threats. You see them without immediately reacting. This doesn't mean you never feel strong emotions, but that you can observe and understand them without being overwhelmed. It's a sign that your energy is no longer being hijacked by unconscious forces. Alongside this comes reduced impulsivity and reactivity. The urge to lash out, to flee, or to sabotage yourself loses urgency. You find space between stimulus and response, a gap where conscious choice becomes possible. Jung hinted at this when he said, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. The ability to pause and choose your action, rather than reacting automatically, is a unique and powerful step toward personal freedom. Another significant sign is greater self-acceptance and compassion. You begin to see your flaws and shadows not as enemies, but as parts of a whole that deserve kindness and understanding. This compassion softens internal conflicts, allowing you to carry less judgment and more empathy toward yourself. It's a difficult but necessary part of breaking the shadow's control, learning to treat yourself as a complex human rather than a problem to fix. Better boundary setting and conscious energy use often follow. When the shadow dominates, you may feel drained by chaotic relationships or endless internal battles. But as it loses power, you grow more skilled at protecting your energy, saying no when needed, choosing where to invest your time and emotion, and recognizing what truly serves your well-being. Finally, a remarkable feeling emerges. You are less drained and overwhelmed by internal conflict. This doesn't mean life becomes free of challenges or difficult emotions, but that your inner landscape is quieter, more manageable. You reclaim energy once spent on unconscious struggles, freeing it for growth, creativity, and connection. Yet, this transformation is far from a finish line. The shadow is a constant companion, sometimes retreating, sometimes pressing forward. The question is not whether it will return, but how you will respond when it does. How do you maintain this fragile balance? How do you keep the shadow in check without denying it so that your energy remains yours, conscious, directed, and alive? What if the way you relate to others, the people you work with, live alongside, or call friends, is deeply shaped by how well you know and manage your own inner shadow? This shift from being controlled by unconscious forces to conscious awareness doesn't just transform your inner world. It ripples outward, changing the quality of your relationships and the environment around you in profound ways. Carl Jung said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." When your shadow loosens its grip, you gain a clearer understanding of your own emotions and motivations. This clarity enhances your ability to communicate effectively and empathize genuinely. Instead of reacting defensively or projecting your fears onto others, you listen more deeply and express yourself with honesty and calm. This improved communication naturally leads to healthier boundaries. When the shadow is dominant, boundaries are often weak or rigid. Either you let others invade your space or you shut down completely to protect yourself. But as awareness grows, you learn to set boundaries that respect both your needs and the needs of others. These boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges that create safe, respectful spaces for interaction. Alongside this, your interactions become more authentic. No longer driven by hidden fears or unacknowledged parts, you show up as a fuller, more integrated person. This authenticity invites others to do the same, creating relationships grounded in truth rather than pretense. Jung highlighted this when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Being genuine in your relationships is one of the clearest signs that you are stepping into your true self. The impact doesn't stop with individuals. This shift influences your social and work environments too. When you bring conscious energy to these spaces, you inspire openness, trust, and collaboration. You become a stabilizing presence amid chaos, a source of calm rather than conflict. Your ability to manage your shadow contributes to a healthier culture where people feel seen and respected. But this transformation also raises a challenging question. How do you maintain this positive influence when old patterns in others, or even within yourself, resurface? How do you keep your environment supportive when shadow dynamics inevitably arise? This is the terrain we will explore next. How to navigate relationships and environments when the shadow inevitably returns to test the boundaries you've built. Change, real, lasting change, rarely happens by chance. It requires intention, courage, and daily practice. If you've begun to see the power of your inner shadow and its influence on your energy, the next question is simple but profound. How do you support this transformation in your everyday life? Carl Jung taught us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This means that transformation begins with self-reflection, deliberately shining light into the hidden corners of your mind and heart. Two powerful tools for this are journaling and mindfulness. Journaling allows you to track patterns, uncover feelings, and dialogue with parts of yourself that usually go unheard. It's not about perfection or eloquence. It's about honesty and curiosity. Mindfulness, on the other hand, trains you to observe your thoughts and emotions without immediate judgment or reaction. Together, they create a space where unconscious material can rise to consciousness and be examined. Beyond self-reflection, shadow work requires facing fears and acknowledging those hidden parts of yourself that you might have avoided. This is often the hardest step because it asks you to sit with discomfort rather than escape it. But Jung reminds us, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This acceptance isn't a one-time event but a continuous practice of embracing your wholeness, the light and the shadow. You don't have to do this alone. Seeking guidance through therapy, mentoring, or supportive communities can provide crucial perspective and encouragement. These relationships hold space for you to explore your inner world safely and to learn from others who have walked similar paths. Connection is a vital part of healing and transformation. Finally, sustaining this shift means cultivating daily habits that maintain conscious control over your energy. This might include setting clear intentions each morning, practicing grounding exercises, or regularly checking in with yourself throughout the day. The aim is to create a rhythm where your awareness guides your choices, rather than reactive impulses. But here's the challenge: transformation is not linear. Old patterns will surface, sometimes stronger than before, testing your commitment and resilience. How do you stay steady when the shadow tries to reclaim its hold? How do you move forward without losing hope? This tension between struggle and growth is where true transformation lives, and where we'll turn our attention next.
Have you ever wondered why some interactions with others seem to ignite unexpected tension or confusion? Why small disagreements spiral into major conflicts? Or why certain people trigger strong emotional reactions in us that feel disproportionate? Much of this can be traced back to the unconscious shadow within us, quietly shaping how we perceive and respond in relationships. Carl Jung insightfully observed, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." This suggests that relationships are not just exchanges between separate individuals but complex interactions where unconscious elements, including the shadow, play a significant role. The shadow often distorts our perceptions of others. When hidden parts of ourselves remain unacknowledged, we project them onto those around us. For example, if we deny our own anger or insecurity, we might suddenly see others as hostile or threatening, even when they are not. This projection creates misunderstandings and conflicts that feel confusing because they are not based on the present reality but on our inner unresolved struggles. This unconscious dance of projection and reaction is a major source of relational tension. When two shadows collide, the result is often explosive, blaming, defensiveness, and emotional distance. The more unaware we are of these dynamics, the more we are caught in repetitive patterns of conflict. Yet there is hope. As we integrate our shadow, bringing these hidden parts into conscious awareness, the distortions begin to dissolve. We start to recognize when our reactions stem from within, rather than from the other person's actions. This awareness transforms relationships, opening space for empathy, honest communication, and mutual growth. Signs of healthier relationships emerge: fewer misunderstandings, more genuine connection, and the ability to hold space for differences without judgment or fear. These changes reflect the growing integration of the shadow within both individuals and the relationship itself. But the path is not always smooth. Integration requires patience and continual self-reflection. How do you keep your awareness sharp when old patterns pull you back? How do you foster transformation in others who may still be under their shadow's influence? When Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely," he was speaking to the core of what shadow work truly requires: a willingness to face the parts of ourselves we fear or dislike the most. Shadow work is not just an intellectual exercise, it's a deeply emotional and spiritual process that demands courage, honesty, and consistent effort. But as you begin to reclaim the lost energy trapped in these hidden aspects, you unlock a deeper, more authentic sense of self. The question now is, how do you begin this transformative journey? How do you unearth these buried parts of yourself and integrate them, rather than allowing them to control you? Thankfully, Jung's work offers several practical techniques that can guide you through this process. Let's explore some of these methods in detail. Dream analysis. One of the most powerful and accessible methods for uncovering shadow material is dream analysis. Jung believed that dreams were a direct window into the unconscious, where the shadow often hides. By paying attention to recurring symbols, emotions, and figures in your dreams, you can begin to uncover hidden fears, desires, and aspects of yourself that have been repressed. For example, if you consistently dream about being chased, it may indicate that you are avoiding an important part of yourself or a fear that you are not ready to face. When you analyze your dreams, look for patterns, symbols, and figures that seem exaggerated or emotionally charged. Ask yourself, what do these dreams tell me about my own hidden feelings or fears? This can be a deeply illuminating process that allows you to connect with your shadow in a non-threatening way. Active imagination. Another technique Jung championed is active imagination, which involves engaging with the unconscious through creative expression. This practice allows you to consciously interact with the parts of your psyche that emerge from the shadows, often through visualization, dialogue, or artistic creation. You might imagine a conversation with a part of yourself that represents a suppressed emotion or an aspect of your personality you've been ignoring. For example, if you feel shame about expressing anger, you might visualize a scene where you speak directly to the emotion of anger, allowing it to be heard. Over time, this practice helps you develop a deeper understanding of your shadow and how it influences your thoughts and behavior. Active imagination can be used in many forms, whether through journaling, painting, or even role-playing, but the key is to allow the unconscious to express itself freely and without judgment. Journaling. Journaling is one of the most straightforward yet effective tools for shadow work. The simple act of writing down your thoughts, emotions, and reactions provides a space to uncover what is hidden beneath the surface. This can be especially powerful when you reflect on moments of emotional intensity, when you feel triggered or out of control. By writing about these experiences, you begin to see patterns that reveal your unconscious fears and desires. Jung often encouraged his patients to keep journals as a way to speak to the unconscious mind, recognizing that the act of writing creates a dialogue between the conscious and unconscious parts of the self. To begin, try free writing in response to an emotion or experience that feels particularly intense. Don't censor yourself. Let the words flow and see where they lead. Over time, you'll begin to see connections between your external life and the internal world of your shadow. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is a powerful and immediate tool for shadow work. By practicing mindfulness, you train yourself to be present in the moment, noticing your thoughts, emotions, and reactions without judgment. The key to shadow work through mindfulness is recognizing when unconscious impulses arise, when you react without thinking, or when you feel a strong emotion without fully understanding why. Through mindfulness, you can catch these moments before they dictate your behavior, giving you the space to reflect and respond consciously. When practicing mindfulness, pay close attention to your emotional reactions throughout the day. When something triggers you, take a moment to pause and ask yourself, what part of me is being triggered right now? This simple practice helps you catch your shadow in the act and gain insight into why it's influencing you in that moment. How each method helps to uncover and integrate the shadow. Each of these techniques offers a unique way to engage with the unconscious. Dream analysis provides a pathway into the hidden world of symbols, offering insight into unconscious fears or desires. Active imagination allows you to interact directly with these aspects, giving them a voice and a presence. Journaling creates a space for the unconscious to reveal itself through writing, and mindfulness helps you develop a moment-to-moment awareness of how your shadow is influencing your thoughts and actions. When these methods are combined, they provide a comprehensive toolkit for shadow work, allowing you to uncover, understand, and integrate the hidden parts of yourself. This process isn't about eliminating the shadow but learning to work with it in a conscious way, turning its energy into a source of strength rather than weakness. Tips for beginning shadow work safely and effectively. Shadow work can be intense, and it's important to approach it with care and patience. Here are a few tips for starting this process safely and effectively. Start small. Begin with gentle methods like mindfulness or journaling. Allow yourself to dip your toes in before diving deep. Set boundaries. Shadow work can be emotionally taxing. Be sure to set boundaries around how much time and energy you devote to this process. Take breaks and practice self-care when needed. Seek support. Shadow work is not something you need to do alone. Consider working with a therapist or joining a community of like-minded individuals to support you as you explore these deeper aspects of yourself. Be compassionate. Remember that shadow work is not about self-criticism or judgment. Approach it with self-compassion and curiosity, not with the intent to punish or shame yourself. Allow time. Shadow work is a lifelong process, not a quick fix. Give yourself the grace to grow slowly and steadily. As you begin the journey of shadow work, remember, transformation does not happen overnight. But the rewards of deeper self-awareness, greater emotional control, and more authentic relationships are more than worth the effort. The question remains, once you begin to integrate your shadow, what does the world look like when you show up fully in all your complexity and power? Have you ever felt like you're constantly fighting an invisible current, struggling to maintain your emotional balance? As you journey through life, the forces within you, your unconscious habits, fears, and desires, often pull you in ways you don't fully understand. Carl Jung's quote, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it," reveals a fundamental truth. Our energy is often blocked by invisible barriers, by the shadow we've yet to confront. The challenge, then, is not just about uncovering these hidden forces, but learning to maintain conscious control over your energy in every aspect of daily life. Once we begin to recognize the impact of our shadow, the real work shifts from understanding it to living with it consciously. How do we take the awareness we've gained from shadow work and integrate it into our daily routines so that we no longer feel overwhelmed by unconscious patterns? The answer lies in cultivating consistent habits that support both our self-awareness and energy management. Daily habits for energy control. One of the most powerful tools in maintaining conscious energy control is meditation. Jung was deeply interested in the role of the unconscious and how we can train ourselves to be more present with our inner world. Meditation creates the space for stillness, allowing you to observe your thoughts, emotions, and reactions without getting swept up in them. By practicing meditation regularly, you begin to train your mind to notice when the shadow is trying to take the reins. There are various forms of meditation, from focusing on your breath to using mantras or guided visualizations. The goal is the same: to create a moment of pause where you can step back from your automatic responses and see your thoughts as they are, without becoming them. Over time, this practice strengthens your ability to stay grounded and centered, no matter the external circumstances. Another crucial practice for maintaining conscious energy is setting boundaries. Our shadow thrives in environments where we fail to set limits, whether it's with people, tasks, or even our own internal demands. Establishing clear boundaries allows us to preserve our energy for what truly matters. Boundaries aren't just about saying no to others. They're about saying yes to yourself. This means recognizing when you're being stretched too thin and giving yourself permission to step back. For example, you may need to create physical boundaries by limiting time spent in overwhelming environments, or emotional boundaries by disengaging from people who drain you. Clear boundaries help you conserve your energy for activities and relationships that nourish your well-being, rather than constantly reacting to external demands. Self-reflection is another essential habit. While it's easy to overlook, taking time at the end of each day to reflect on your emotions, choices, and reactions creates a powerful feedback loop. In these moments of self-reflection, you can ask yourself, what did I learn today about my unconscious triggers? How did my shadow show up, and how can I respond more consciously next time? By building this reflective habit into your routine, you become better equipped to manage your energy. This isn't about self-criticism but about learning. Reflection provides the insight needed to identify patterns, assess how your shadow showed up, and find ways to respond in a more intentional way. Avoiding old shadow traps. The truth about shadow work is that it's an ongoing process. Even once you begin to integrate your shadow and take control of your energy, old patterns can resurface. The challenge is not to eliminate these patterns, but to remain vigilant against them. As Jung wisely noted, the most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. These moments of conflict offer opportunities for growth, but only if we stay conscious. One of the easiest traps to fall into is thinking that once you've done shadow work, the shadow will no longer affect you. This is a misconception. The shadow never truly disappears. It simply becomes less of a hidden force and more of an integrated part of who you are. The danger is that in moments of stress or vulnerability, you may slip back into unconscious patterns. To avoid this, continuous inner vigilance is essential. This means checking in with yourself regularly, particularly when you feel emotionally overwhelmed. Notice when you are reacting impulsively or when you feel emotionally triggered by something minor. These moments are often where the shadow tries to regain its hold. By staying aware, you can intervene before it takes over, making a conscious choice to respond rather than react. Seeing this as an ongoing journey. Maintaining conscious energy control is not a one-time fix. It's a journey, a continuous process of self-discovery and integration. Shadow work doesn't have an endpoint. It's a dynamic and evolving practice that requires patience, commitment, and compassion. As you walk this path, you'll find that your energy becomes more aligned with your true self, allowing you to live more authentically and purposefully. The most important thing to remember is that this journey isn't linear. There will be moments of progress and there will be setbacks. However, with each step, you move closer to a life where you no longer feel controlled by unconscious forces. You'll be living with greater awareness, more conscious energy, and a deeper sense of peace. But the deeper question remains, how can you sustain this growth when external pressures or internal distractions pull you in different directions? How do you keep your energy focused on your true path while navigating the complexities of life?
If you've been walking the path of shadow work for any length of time, you've probably encountered resistance. At times, it may feel as though the work is too difficult, too painful, or even impossible. Perhaps you've faced emotional overwhelm, experienced moments of intense fear, or found yourself falling back into old patterns of denial. If any of this sounds familiar, you're not alone. This resistance is an inevitable part of shadow work, but it's also a sign that you are progressing. Carl Jung profoundly stated, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." This quote speaks to the essence of what shadow work demands: the courage to face what we've repressed, the discomfort of acknowledging parts of ourselves that we've long ignored. Fear, denial, and emotional overwhelm are not signs that you're failing. They are natural responses to deep, inner transformation. These emotional reactions occur because the shadow is an aspect of the self that we've avoided, and bringing it into the light creates a kind of psychic upheaval. One of the most common challenges during shadow work is fear. It's the fear of facing emotions or parts of ourselves that feel too dark, too painful, or too shameful. The shadow often contains those aspects of ourselves we are most afraid to acknowledge, whether it's anger, insecurity, guilt, or vulnerability. The truth is, fear is not the enemy. It's an indicator that you're approaching something important, something that needs your attention. Another form of resistance is denial. We convince ourselves that we've done enough work, or that the issues we're facing aren't really ours to deal with. This defense mechanism is an attempt to protect ourselves from pain, but it can also keep us trapped in old patterns. The longer we resist facing the shadow, the more power it gains over our behavior and energy. Emotional overwhelm is another challenge. Shadow work often stirs up powerful emotions that we might not feel prepared to handle. This can lead to moments of burnout, confusion, or a feeling of being stuck. When this happens, it's essential to remember that emotional overwhelm is temporary. It's a sign that deeper healing is occurring. How setbacks are part of the growth process. It's essential to reframe setbacks as part of the process. Shadow work is not about achieving perfection or a final resolution. It's about the continuous journey of self-awareness and integration. Just as physical growth requires moments of discomfort, emotional and psychological growth also requires times of resistance. Every setback is an opportunity to learn more about yourself, to understand where your resistance is coming from, and to approach it with greater compassion. Strategies to persist: self-compassion, community support, and therapy. When facing resistance, it's vital to approach yourself with self-compassion. This means recognizing that you are human and that it's okay to struggle. Allow yourself the space to feel whatever arises without judgment. Acknowledge that your fear, denial, and overwhelm are simply part of the process, not signs of failure. Community support is also a powerful tool for overcoming setbacks. Shadow work can feel isolating at times, but connecting with others who are on a similar journey can provide encouragement and perspective. Whether through online forums, support groups, or trusted friends, having a community that understands your process can help you stay grounded and motivated. Finally, therapy can be a tremendous resource when dealing with resistance. A trained therapist can help you navigate the emotional intensity of shadow work, offering tools and insights that can make the process more manageable. Therapy provides a safe space where you can explore your shadow with guidance, making it easier to confront the emotions and beliefs that arise. Reassurance: resistance means progress. Remember, resistance is not a sign that you're failing. In fact, it often means the opposite: you're making progress. As Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. The discomfort you feel is a necessary part of the transformation process. Keep going. Each step forward, no matter how small, is a victory in reclaiming your energy and your wholeness. As we come to the close of this journey, let's pause and reflect on the key signs that the shadow no longer controls your energy. You now know when your emotions are truly yours to hold, rather than being dictated by unconscious patterns. You've learned to set clear boundaries that protect your energy, and you've gained the ability to respond rather than react to the triggers of life. The integration of the shadow is no longer a distant ideal, but a tangible reality in your daily experience. Celebrating the power of conscious awareness. The power of conscious awareness is profound. By integrating the shadow, you're not simply eliminating an unconscious force. You are becoming whole. This wholeness doesn't mean perfection, but rather a deep acceptance of all aspects of yourself. The light, the dark, and everything in between. As Jung said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. This understanding allows you to approach others with greater empathy, compassion, and clarity, because you know the complexity that resides within you. Encouragement to keep exploring and honoring the shadow. The process of shadow work is not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing journey of self-discovery and integration. As you continue to honor your shadow, you become more aligned with your authentic self, more conscious in your decisions, and more connected to the world around you. Shadow work is a lifelong practice that deepens with time, but the rewards are immeasurable. Keep exploring, keep integrating, and keep honoring the shadow as an essential part of your wholeness. As you embrace your full range of experiences, emotions, and capabilities, you become freer, more powerful, and more authentic. The energy that was once tied up in unconscious patterns is now yours to use for creation, connection, and purpose. In the end, shadow work is not about escaping the darkness. It's about learning to move through it with awareness and grace. The more you do, the more you'll see the world not as a place to fear, but as an opportunity to fully live in your wholeness.